Are you a business owner looking for real advice and input? You're in the right place. From concept to launch to growth, funding, and beyond. Welcome to Startup Hustle with your hosts. One once sold a business for $150 million. The other, the author of $1 Million Bedroom. Here are your hosts of Startup Hustle, Matt DeCoursey and Matt Watson.
1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1. 'Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it.
And we're back. Another episode of Startup Hustle. Matt DeCoursey here with Matt Watson. Hi, Matt.
Hey, what's going on?
It's another day in the queue, baby. Queue time's due time. That's what we're saying
yeah.
around the DeCoursey household. So how are you doing, buddy?
Doing all right. Still waiting for my stimulus check.
Are you going to donate it to charity upon receipt?
I'm going to go spend it at a local business as fast as possible.
Well, in the event that you decided to go charitable, I think today's guest might be able to help you with some of that. With us today, we have Brett Hagler, the CEO of New Story. For those of you listening, you know I like it when you're interactive, so I want you to go to newstorycharity.org so you can have some idea what we're talking about. While you're on the internet, go over and check out fullscale.io, the sponsor of today's episode of Startup Hustle, helping you build software development teams quickly and affordably. Now back to our guest, Brett. Welcome.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on.
Well, why don't we go ahead and get started with you giving us the superhero backstory of New Story and yourself.
Oh gosh, not superhero. So I these days am lucky to run an organization called New Story, and our mission is to pioneer solutions to end global homelessness. And so we try to think up new and innovative and modern ways to tackle a really monumental challenge and problem. We believe it's one of the biggest problems in the world today, that about 1 billion people don't have licensed basic human needs of safety and shelter. And we're trying to figure out kind of exponential ways to change that. And we're about 5 years old. I started it when I was a young guy at 25. I've matured now. I'm in my 30s, and it was just after a trip that I took to Haiti, and I saw kids living without safe houses due to the earthquake that happened there. And then I came back and I actually tried to find other nonprofits that I can get involved with. But the more I looked, the more I saw of just kind of the pretty much the status quo, and people were doing things how they've always seemingly been doing it for the last few decades. And so I thought it make sense to actually start something new, and that's why it's called New Story. That would just be founded on different operating principles, maybe some words you don't necessarily associate with a charity, which would be innovation, research and development, software engineering team, taking risk. So that's what we did, and we fortunately now have been off to a pretty good start, and looking forward to scale things up as we go forward.
So the task of ending something like homelessness is pretty daunting. We always like to say, if you're going to eat an elephant, you got to do it one bite at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Usually start with the tail. So, I mean, how do you go about something that global and that big? I mean, what's the approach?
Yeah, I mean, so obviously, like, you can only do so much with a massive problem, and you got to start small, and that's what we've done. But what we've done from a strategy standpoint is we've really changed how we measure our impact. So in the early days, it was a lot more direct and linear, which would essentially mean we raise money and then we build homes and communities with that money. But when you're working on such a big problem, that's only going to get you so far, right? And it's going to matter for the families that you work with for sure. But what we've done is we've now said we're going to create new innovations. We're going to prove them in the communities that we build. And then we're going to democratize them and essentially export those to governments and other housing nonprofits so that we can make them more effective and them more efficient. So we're kind of like the R&D and innovation arm to the global social housing sector. And that means software that we build, we will democratize to them. We've created a 3D printing machine, our partner Icon out of Texas, and creating the world's first 3D printed community. That started a couple months ago with the idea that we could get on the ground floor of that, prove something that's really hard, prove it in the context of where we work, which makes it even harder. And then ultimately not keep that for ourselves, because that's way too small of an idea and you're never gonna get to scale that way. But open it up and basically have distribution network of other governments and nonprofits. So that's what we're trying to make a bigger impact, Matt. Now, are we going to get to 1 billion people ourselves? That's a pretty, I think that's a little far-fetched. But we do think we can make a sizable dent in that number over the next decade. And it's at some point with a lot of these global challenges, you have to be able to don't be afraid of work that has no end. Right. That's something we believe in. And you may not see 100% completion to something, but it doesn't mean it's not worth doing.
Now, are you guys focused on a certain part of the US or the world that you're doing this, or is it global?
Yeah. So we started primarily in Mexico and Haiti and El Salvador. And that's where we've worked the last 5 years. And so we actually just began a U.S. project in response to COVID-19. But before that, and I'll talk more about that. But before that, we had not yet worked in the U.S.
So I think it's interesting. You said this all started because you took a trip to Haiti, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been to the Philippines 11 times, and
oh wow,
going there had the same effect on me. Seeing how they live and like my wife's own family, how they live. I mean, their house is very interesting. It's very different. It's nothing like a house in the United States. But that's the way they live, and that's normal to them.
Yeah.
And yeah, it definitely has a huge impact on you. And I always say it's one of the best things that people can ever do is travel and see the world. And the first time I ever saw that was in Mexico, was seeing how some people live down there. And it was.
Where'd you go in Mexico?
I went down to Cancun and then went further south to Playa del Carmen.
Okay.
So I was sort of touristy areas, but Playa del Carmen's a little more off the beaten path than Cancun. So
yeah. Gotcha. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I didn't really go to developing world until after college, and I wish I went earlier. And so for people listening, especially if you have kids, I mean, I think from the age between like, I don't know, even as early as like 8 or 9 up until when people were in college, having them exposed to the reality of the majority of the world is pretty damn important in my opinion.
I think so too, because I mean, we all live in our little bubbles, and
100%.
And I think that's where our kids can be influenced a lot and open their eyes. So I'm actually really hoping to take my oldest son, who will be 12 next summer, taking him to the Philippines next summer. It's my goal.
Yeah, dude, that's amazing. I mean, we live in our bubbles, and I'm speaking to this because I was the exact same way. And we don't realize that, obviously not everybody, but I would say that a lot of us probably listening to this podcast are definitely the wealthiest people in the world and the luckiest people in the world. And if you add all that together, it's like, we're probably the wealthiest and luckiest people in history.
Yeah.
And like a lot of that is just due to where we were born.
Yeah. Like I was talking to my wife about what to get her parents for Christmas, and they don't have a TV. So it's like, oh, maybe we should get them a TV, or what else do they need more than that? And she's like, well, they really need a sink. Yeah. They don't have a sink. I'm like, what? Mm-hmm. Like, nope, they have a water hose. That's it. That's the entire plumbing of their house, a water hose. It just goes to speak how different our world is.
Yeah, man. So I couldn't encourage that more, anybody listening.
So so you're working in, you said, these 2 or 3 different countries. How exactly does your organization work? Like, how do you pick who you're helping? Like how does all that work?
Yeah, so we work with there's a lot of different types of interventions and demographics that organizations work with for families that need help. We choose to work with really the most vulnerable families, and so those are families that are in extreme poverty, anywhere between like $2 to $5 a day in income. A lot of it is just circumstance of their country. The macro environment's generational extreme poverty. Sometimes it's due to a natural disaster. And so those are the families that we work with. And because of that, it's definitely the greatest need. But it also it makes a lot of the programs harder because you do have to have more philanthropy than you could for a more like for-profit business, just because the market that you're trying to work with is literally the poorest market there is. So we work with those families. We partner with them. We think that there's great potential and great hope if they just get a little bit of help. And so we're able to come in and identify locations with local nonprofit partners that have expertise in those areas that we don't. And we identify who they are. They have government relationships, they have cultural context, know who the families are, et cetera. Partner with them, and we get a large piece of land and almost act as a developer, and we'll design and we'll build a couple hundred home community.
Wow.
That'll have thousands of people, and we'll bring in other partners such as school, sports facilities, sometimes a church, income opportunities. And you have this holistic place where we're able to build homes at a lower cost, obviously, because we get economies of scale when we do that. Families actually will pay back the cost of their home almost as like a no interest, no profit mortgage. And that money doesn't come back to New Story, but it's actually kept in like a community fund. So it's, over time, it's repurposed to invest back into that community. It could be for maintenance, it could be for new houses, it could be for electricity, whatever it might be. And we're able to come in and kind of catalyze it, and again get lower pricing because a family in a 300 home community, I mean, the cost of that house is going to be way less than if they just try to go out and build a house themselves, right?
Yeah, what kind of houses are you building? Are these like very, very small single family houses, or are you talking about more like condos?
Yeah, they're single family homes. Some are 2 stories, but most are 1 story single family homes between like 600 to 900 square feet. Okay. We build them to last, and so it's less of a temporary thing and more of you could raise your family and their kids in this home. And so the price range is anywhere from like $6,000 to $12,000. It just depends on for the whole house for like their whole lives. Pretty good bang for your buck when you think long term. And yeah, I mean, we've now done a little over 3,000 of those, and it's been incredible to see. It's been incredible to see these families. They're actually for the most part, very hardworking families. And when they have safety and shelter, then clean water as well comes in the homes. There's usually a shower, toilet, sanitation is clean. Like once you have your basic needs covered, then you can start to actualize your potential, right? And a lot of your psychological potential and a lot of your intelligence will come through after you have those basic human needs, right? So like I just think for myself, like if I didn't have safe shelter, and every night when it rains or it storms or there could be intruders that come in my house with my kids, I'm not thinking about starting a company, right? I'm thinking about doing all that stuff. I'm thinking about how do I freaking survive? Mm-hmm. Yep. And it's called survival mode. That's the families we work with. They're in survival mode, and that's all they can think about. And so when you're able to come along and kind of remove that, then you start to see like, wow, there's so much potential. And last thing I'll say on this is, a phrase I use a lot, which I just have really seen around the world, is that talent or creativity or intelligence is universal, right? It's spread out through every community around this country. That is universal, right? What's not universal is opportunity. And so when you can try to bring opportunity to these places where, the kids there are no less more intelligent or creative or talent than the kids in our country, right? It's like the same, right? You're born with the same kind of genetics and distribution of that. And so when you can bring in opportunities, you're going to hopefully, unlock a lot more potential in those areas. That's what we try to do.
So, Brett, first off, what you're doing is amazing. I mean, it gives me hope and makes me excited to see people like you doing what you're doing. It's not easy to start anything. Charities are even more difficult. I noticed here in my notes that you participated in Y Combinator, which is obviously one of the top startup accelerators in the world. What was that process like? Because I think people usually associate things like YC with the next unicorn startup or something like that. What was the process like getting into that and going through that?
Yeah, that's a good question. We were one of the first nonprofits to go through Y Combinator summer of 2014. Summer 2015. And I mean, look, the process for us, it was extraordinary. It was 10 out of 10. It really got in the DNA of who we are. The reason why we applied is because that's how I founded the organization, right? I founded the organization off the same principles that the Airbnb founders and the Stripe founders and the Dropbox founders, that they were all doing. And these are not secrets, right? Y Combinator is an amazing job of crystallizing some philosophies and some practical ways to get an idea off the ground. And that's what we were doing. And then we applied and, we got in. A story I'll tell is, me and my two co-founders, Matthew and Alexandria, are amazing, but and they're more accomplished and smarter than I am before we got into Y Combinator. Like our resumes were, at least mine especially, was like nothing. I mean, I had failed startup before this. I went to Florida State University, basically majoring in like fraternity and football, like and girls. There's nothing. And so the reason we got in is because we were incredibly scrappy and resourceful. We got a quick idea and product to market and got some traction on it relatively quickly. And we just went fast. And then the other thing we did is that in preparing for the Y Combinator application and for the interview process, there were about, I think, like 9,000 startups that applied, and they only took about 100. And, but I can guarantee you that out of those 9,000 startups, we spent more time on our application. We were more obsessive with every detail of getting it right, talking to everybody we possibly could. And then when we got to the last round of the interview process, this is kind of become a mantra at News Story now. What they do in Y Combinator is you get to the last step, and out of those 9,000 startups, they will invite about 300 to Mountain View, Silicon Valley, for an in-person 10-minute interview, literally 10 minutes. So they'll fly in people from Brazil, from China, from New York, and it's a 10-minute, infamous interview where they're just like peppering. I mean, it's craziness. And so we knew that we kind of lucked out and we had our opportunity, but there's only a third of a chance that we were going to get in, and we knew we were going up against like the top early stage founders in the world. And so we prepared well over 100 hours, probably close to 200 hours for a 10-minute interview, and that is why we got in.
So when you were pitching for this, what was the like product or service you were pitching at that time?
It was the early days of what we do today. So it was a crowdfunding platform that would connect any donor to a family in Haiti that was homeless. You could go on our platform, you could see who they are, you could crowdfund a house for them. 100% of that donation would go towards building the house. You would see their picture, you would read their story, so you have a direct connection with them. And then when they moved in, we would make a move-in video, we would send it back, so you get to see the end result. So the problem we solved was a lack of transparency, a lack of trust that obviously a very large pool of donors rightfully have. And we countered that with a better customer experience, basically.
But your business is a nonprofit, right?
Mm-hmm.
But does Y Combinator usually do a lot of nonprofits, or was
Not
this like a special
we
group that they did?
We were one of the first ones they took, and they still take like one or two.
Yeah, that's why I said that. That's why I said that earlier, because YC's trying to find like that next unicorn, publicly traded, highly funded company, and not necessarily known for charitable stuff. So I really commend you for your ability to run through that gauntlet. However, I think we're missing a great opportunity to talk about something. We just build up a lot of hype around this 10-minute interview that people travel around the world to get. And I'm kind of curious what goes on during that 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you can Google stuff because they have some of the questions out there, but it is the most intense interview that I think anybody will probably go through. And they're, of course, on purpose, peppering you, pressuring you, asking you every single possible detail. And I'm not going to share some of the exact questions I remember we prepared for. They were pretty intense. But it was like the ultimate test of how well do you know your organization? Do you have a vision? And then I'd say probably most importantly is how is the interaction between the co-founders? And we actually prepared a lot for that. And so we knew who was going to own what question, how we were going to respond. And, we just, I believe everybody has the will to win. Not everybody has the will to prepare. And when you can prepare more than others, you're usually going to win.
Well, I think that approach fits into so much of what we've talked about in over 300 episodes of Startup Hustle, and that come proper, be prepared, look like you're in the business of doing whatever it is that you say that you do. And, there's so many people that leave out, there's a phrase that says the devil is in the details.
Totally.
And the thing is if you're going to, you talk about 9,000 companies applying for 100 spots, and 100 spots sounds like a lot. And it's, not in a pool of 9,000. That's not highly likely. They probably excluded the first 6,000 people out of that for little detail or something like I said, not coming proper.
That's right.
And for those that are trying to start a business, raising capital, talking to investors, trying to get into a business accelerator, anything, don't be the guy that shows up to pitch your .com that wants a reply email at your Yahoo address. That's just that some of those little things are notable. And then sometimes, like in your case, you've kind of acknowledged that you felt like you had a bit of an uphill climb as a charity or different stuff. Did you take any other additional preparation or knowing that you were not the typical model that something like Y Combinator chases?
No. The best part about it was that they treated us no different than anybody else. And so it was the exact same program. And at the end of the day, that's like, to me at least, obviously, like at the very end of the day, some of the profits are going to shareholders or blah, blah, blah. But like as a startup, what are you trying to do? You're trying to increase your revenue. You're trying to increase your users. You're trying to become profitable. You're trying to grow a brand. You're trying to, do all these things. It's the exact same thing, whether you're Airbnb or your news story, right? You just have different customer target market, but everything else is the same. How you build product, how you think about technology. Why should it be any different? It shouldn't. It should be done with a pursuit of excellence, and that's what they really push you for there.
So you mentioned earlier that you've either built or are in the process of building the world's largest 3D printed community.
Mm-hmm.
What have been the obstacles that you've had to overcome with that? 5 years ago, that was pretty new technology. I know it's made leaps and bounds forward,
Yeah.
but paint us a beautiful word picture of what that looks like in the end, but start from the challenging part in the beginning.
Yeah, well, the beautiful word picture, I'd actually encourage people if they're interested, is now a video. It's now a documentary on Apple TV. And so if you go to Apple TV, there's a new series called Home, and Home is a 9-episode series that just came out on April 17th. And one of we have an episode in there which is about a 40-minute documentary that profiles the journey of creating the first few houses in this 3D printed, first 3D printed houses in this community. So that will do way more justice than I can explain over a podcast of how it all works and how it all looks. But yeah, I mean, it was, there's a mantra, we have a news story that it's crazy until it's not. And this was the ultimate example of that. Fortunately it turned out to work for us. But when we started it in the very early days with our partner Icon, it was a startup out of Austin. In the US, there was not a 3D printing machine that had successfully printed a real home ever. And, but we thought there was promise in it. We thought that it was had a specifically good use case for our kind of homes, which, as I mentioned earlier, are simple, single-family houses with concrete, cement built to last. And that's the kind of 3D printing that we do. It's a proprietary cement mix, and it'll come out of a nozzle, and it'll layer from the home from the bottom, from the interior and exterior walls all the way to the top. And we've gotten pretty quick at it these days, and that's how it works. But it went from a crazy idea to making a prototype to getting the first house actually printed from the prototype, which gave us promise, which then allowed me to go raise some new funds against that because we had a proven prototype, we had an MVP. And the next round we raised, this is all philanthropic money. It was R&D to do this. Was to create a machine that we could put on an 18-wheeler, drive to southern Mexico, get it off of the machine, put it on a piece of land, and have it print a community. And that's happening.
So in these communities, in these communities,
that happened all in 2 years.
Do people usually build houses in these communities with cinder blocks?
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's right.
So a lot of people who are listening probably don't realize that. And in other parts of the world, it's real common for houses to be built out of concrete and built out of cinder blocks and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Which is really foreign for Americans, but that's really normal.
Yeah.
Well, Matt mentioned earlier having gone to the Philippines 11 times. I think I've been 8 or 9. We have 183 employees over there, and honestly, nowhere near the level that you're at. But we've tried to take that global citizen approach because as we've gone over there, I don't know, just like Matt said earlier, I mean, it's just it's a little different reality. There's a large divide between the haves and the have-nots, but we definitely see a different side of a lot of different stuff, and it's touching. And the things that I think if you can feel like you're making an impact with what you're doing in life and making a difference, however it is, it feels great. So. As far as is that what keeps you going on the days where things are tough or a challenge, is just knowing that you're doing things that ultimately benefit people, not only now, but on a longer term basis?
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things, obviously not everybody has to work on something that is as direct of a life change as we work on. I couldn't imagine working on something that doesn't have some impact or benefit. So that definitely keeps me going, knowing of how I'm spending my short time on this earth is helping other people. I think that there's no greater return than that on your life. And so that helps. And then, you know, I'm just very lucky to have an incredible team, and, you know, feel as my job as a leader is to just provide the best opportunities and the best resources for them. And that excites me like crazy.
So for those of you listening, if you want to help Brett and New Story with their resources, you can go to newstorycharity.org, go to the, you can drop the sidebar down on the side of the browser and get involved in the neighborhood, where you can make your own donation. You can choose to, which is what I want you to do, is get a subscription going, people, and you can give monthly, you can give one time. They're pretty straightforward, with 100% of your monthly donation ensures families are safely housed. I think the thing that's amazing on top of that is, you know, like, let's be realistic. Some charities have become pretty well publicized for not utilizing the donations. I love the fact that you're creating a level of efficiency in building that is effective now and like scalable and sustainable on a lot of different levels. You know, Matt mentioned earlier, talking about homes made out of concrete. A lot of people don't understand the why of that. Well, in some cultures and climates, you have hurricanes, typhoons, things like that. It's actually a much better way. I learned that firsthand. I helped one of our employees in the Philippines build his first house just through a loan. And you know, he was explaining the process. I was like, what do you mean you're building it out of concrete? And then he's like, yeah, I don't want it to blow away.
We learned this a long time ago from the Little Red Riding Hood.
Right. Well, I didn't learn from that, but I mean, the moral I took out of that story was not that I need to build my home out of concrete. Now, that said, it made a lot of sense. And, you know, that's interesting. I think the 3D part of it is really interesting because, as you mentioned, there's such a large portion of people worldwide that could benefit from something repeatable and scalable and affordable like that. And, you know, if you have the mechanism to build it, you know, concrete is available and can be made and mixed and acquired about anywhere. So, and, you know, that's not the most expensive part of building most homes. So I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Now, during all of our episodes of Startup Hustle, and Brett might just win by default. We usually play Mixtape the Game. If you want to check out mixtapethegame.com or Mixtape the app. So I'm going to read a scenario off of a mixtape card. We're all going to name a song that comes to mind to go with that. And then we will vote for who the winner is. You may not vote for yourself. I guess we'll say all the proceeds will go to charity, right, Matt?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, all right. So here's today's mixtape card. And by the way, if you want to download Mixtape the app, it's available on iOS and Android. What song would play during a job interview to convince your new employer, Kevin Bacon, to hire you? I mean, am I allowed to pick Footloose? Is that like too obvious? So what song would you play? It's your selection, not even playing in the background. We got to convince Kevin Bacon to hire you. I'm actually, you know what? I'm going to go with that Everything is Awesome song from
Oh, man.
Are they? And the listeners are wondering if you were going to let DeCoursey win by default. The best answer is always the first thing that pops into your head.
Well, it's got to be.
Don't say "F you" by CeeLo Green.
Come on.
I knew you were going there. It's banned from play, banned from mixtape.
Oh, come on.
Mine is probably, this is less relevant to if Kevin Bacon was doing the interview, but one of my favorite songs, and if somebody played this, I would definitely hire them, is Every Day I'm Hustling by Rick Ross.
Oh.
You're about to time out, Watson. I can tell by the look in his eyes. He is Googling away right now.
I'm lost on this one.
All right,
Yeah.
you're out, Watson. You timed
No.
out. You got now. I can't vote for Watson, so I got to vote for Brett. You might have ruined Mixtape. Who's
So
your vote go to, Brett? Yeah, I guess you got to pick me. See, we have a draw.
I'll pick you. That's
We
fair.
have a draw. We have a draw. Boo.
does that mean I pick the winner then?
Yeah, sure.
All right. So what are my two options again?
Just pick Brett.
Okay, Brett wins.
Congratulations, Brett. You're the winner of this round of Mixtape the Game. Oh my God. Watson, you have Google in front of you and you couldn't come up with a song?
No.
All right.
Okay.
So once again with us today, we have Brett Hagler, who's the CEO of New Story. Go check him out, newstorycharity.org. We end our episodes of Startup Hustle by doing what we call the Founders Freestyle. We pass the mic around. We offer a little bit of advice, input, or sometimes resolution about this particular episode. Brett, you get to go first in this round. So, what would you offer those that maybe I'll guide you a little bit. If for those that want to start something philanthropic or a startup related to charity, what's some of the best advice you could give those people?
Dream big, start small. So the reason why I like that is because, you can make up a lot of excuses and I was using News Story as an example of like in the early days, I don't know how to make thousands of homes, across different countries and 3D printing machines and all this stuff we're doing now. But it's like the only reason we had a chance to do the things we did now is because we tried to do one house. Right. So anybody can figure out how to do one house. If you have any kind of entrepreneurial, passion or level of resourcefulness, the only thing stopping you is you to do that. And so if you want to get started, start small. Don't be paralyzed by not having everything figured out. Nobody has it all figured out in the beginning. But start with that first goal and then just work like hell to do it.
Mr. Watson?
I just wanted to say I think it's awesome that you were able to go through Y Combinator as a nonprofit and what you guys are doing. I think it's really cool, and I think it's neat how you incorporated 3D printing into this. And I'm gonna guess the company you partnered with to do this, it was a huge deal to them probably for you to partner with them and use their technology and stuff. So I just think it's really cool how you've connected a very charitable cause, a great cause with some new technology and using it to solve real problems. I think it's really cool.
So once again with us today, Brett Hagler, the CEO of New Story. Go to newstorycharity.org. If you want to find either Brett or New Story Charity on the gram, it's at Brett Hagler, at New Story Charity. You can find the same on Facebook and Twitter. Go make a donation, make a difference, do something. If you want to check out Startup Hustle on YouTube, Startup Hustle podcast, same as the gram.
Mm-hmm.
Brett, thank you so much for coming in. It's refreshing on just to, talk to people that are doing stuff that makes such a deep and lasting impact. I think that when we handed you the mic, you said, dream big, start small. I mean, I think that's epic advice. We mentioned very, very early, I used the phrase, if you're going to eat an elephant, you do it one bite at a time. I don't condone eating elephants, but it gives you have to do things piece by piece, step by step. Just because you don't know how to do something doesn't mean that you won't. I hear a lot of people use the excuse that they don't have experience. Nobody had experience until they did.
That's right.
So sometimes you have to create that for you. With all that, once again, thanks for coming out, and I'll see you all next time.